All right, so are you ready to really do a deep dive today?
Always ready.
Okay, good. Because you sent over some fascinating interviews with Ahmad al-Shara,
Oh, yeah.
the new leader of Syria, with journalist Ahmed Mansour.
He's great, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he really gets al-Shara to open up. So we're going to explore what his leadership style is all about.
Okay.
Explore how he went from, like, literally having a bounty on his head to becoming president
Yeah, in 11 days.
in just 11 days.
It's crazy.
It's wild, and we're going to consider what this means for Syria's future.
A complete reshaping of the Syrian political landscape.
It really is, and going through these interviews, what struck me was the sheer contrast between al-Shara in 2013,
Right.
when the U.S. had him on their terrorist list with a $10 million bounty on his head, to December 2024,
Oh, my gosh.
where he's leading Syria.
Right.
But the U.S., Europe, and Russia are all trying to, like, get on his good side.
It makes you wonder, how did this happen?
It really does.
How did this happen?
Yeah.
Well, the sources point to a few key factors. First, al-Shara seems to have a knack for what some might call strategic deception.
Right, like framing the recent liberation campaign as a defensive operation.
Right, great.
To avoid outside interference.
Yeah, it's almost like a magician, misdirecting the audience's attention.
Yeah,
And while that might raise some ethical questions,
sure.
it was undeniably effective.
It worked.
Yeah, and beyond just tactics, his approach to leadership itself seems to be resonating.
Okay.
Mansour actually identified 20 distinct qualities,
Wow.
but I think we can group them into some core themes.
Oh, okay. I like that. What jumped out at you?
Well, first, there's strategic thinking.
Yeah.
That's evident in the deception example, but also in his long-term vision.
Right.
Even back in 2015 when he was in hiding, he was focused on liberating all of Syria.
Not just a particular region.
Not just the specific region, no, the whole thing.
It's like he had the end game in mind.
He had the end game in mind.
Even when things were so bleak.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not just a big picture guy. He's also incredibly pragmatic and focused on problem solving.
I see.
He's identified security, rebuilding infrastructure, and bringing refugees home as top priorities.
It's so interesting how he sees returning refugees as an asset,
Absolutely.
not a burden in rebuilding the country.
Yeah, and that speaks to his emphasis on unity
Okay.
and a needs-based approach.
Yeah.
He seems to really understand the Syrian people,
Mm-hmm.
their desire for peace, security, and a chance to rebuild their lives.
That leads into another theme that emerged, his ability to connect with people, even former adversaries.
Social intelligence, Mansour calls it.
Yeah, and it seems key to his efforts to reconcile the country after so much division.
It's definitely a strength, and I'd connect this to another quality Mansour highlighted,
Okay.
al-Shara's open door policy and willingness to engage directly with people.
He's like the opposite of a dictator.
Yeah,
So approachable, accessible.
right.
There's that anecdote about him gifting Mansour his keffieh after their 2015 interview.
I love that story.
It's such a small gesture,
Right.
but it shows a personal touch that you don't often see with leaders, especially in such a precarious position at the time.
Right.
Like, that shows someone who values loyalty,
Yes.
remembers those who supported him.
Absolutely. And it speaks to his broader emphasis on building relationships
Right.
with individuals, but also with countries.
Okay.
Like his shifting stance towards Russia is a prime example.
From enemy to potential partner.
Exactly.
Wow.
And which also highlights his adaptability. He's not afraid to change course
Right.
if circumstances demand it.
If he needs to.
Yeah, and that ties into his constant review and adaptation of strategies,
Okay.
which is crucial in a volatile environment like the Middle East.
Speaking of volatility, we have to talk about Iran.
Oh, yeah.
He's been very vocal about his concerns over Iran's influence in Syria, and he's actually managed to expel Iranian forces.
Huge.
That's huge.
It's a bold move, and it shows he's not afraid to take on powerful actors when it comes to Syria.
It's like he's playing this high-stakes game of chess,
Yes.
and just made a very aggressive move.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
This brings us to another crucial aspect of al-Shara's leadership, his focus.
Okay.
Whether it's the swift execution of the liberation campaign or his commitment to time management as a core value.
It's like he's operating at a different speed than
Yes,
everyone
it's
else.
Speed.
And yet, alongside that efficiency, there's also this innovative streak.
Yes.
He's constantly generating new ideas and relying on his team for implementation.
And this is where the quality over quantity aspect of his team building comes in.
Right.
He surrounds himself with capable individuals,
Yeah.
which is essential for bringing those ideas to life.
So he's a strategic thinker, a pragmatist, a relationship builder, and an innovator.
It's quite a combination.
It really is, and we can't forget his commitment to truth and justice.
Oh, absolutely.
He's made a point of addressing injustices, especially towards Christians in Idlib,
Yes.
which actually hasn't gotten as much attention in the Western media.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a reminder that there are so many layers to this story, and al-Shara's vision for Syria may be more complex than it initially appears.
Yeah, for sure. It certainly does.
Yeah.
And speaking of dimensions, we can't overlook the role history plays in al-Shara's thinking.
Oh, yeah.
He sees Syria's liberation as part of a larger historical pattern
Okay.
of empires falling in the region,
Wow.
drawing parallels to the Crusades and other events.
So he's looking at it through a very long lens,
Yeah.
like playing a part in this much larger historical drama.
That's a good way to put it. And this historical perspective seems to inform his belief that Syria has a unique role to play
Okay.
in the region, maybe even on the world stage.
There's definitely a sense of ambition there.
Yeah.
And it's not just reclaiming past glory. He also talked about promoting a moderate and tolerant interpretation of Islam,
Right.
pushing back against extremist ideologies that have fueled so much conflict.
Yeah, so he's not simply trying to restore the old order,
Right.
but to create something new.
Oh.
A Syria that's both rooted in its history and open to the future.
And maybe even a model for other countries in the region.
Yeah, that's grappling with similar challenges.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But let's shift gears a bit and look at some specific events and anecdotes from these interviews that really stood out.
Okay. Yes.
Let's get into it.
What comes to mind for you? I don't know.
Well, al-Shara's return to his family home in Damascus is quite telling.
Well, yeah.
After it was seized by the regime, he reclaimed it,
Right.
but instead of evicting the current resident, he gave him time to move out.
It's like a small act of compassion, but it speaks volumes. It's
Yeah,
like,
it
we're going to
should.
do things differently now.
Exactly, and it reinforces his commitment to justice and reconciliation.
Yeah.
Another symbolic moment was when he entered Damascus.
Okay.
He prayed at the Umayyad Mosque,
Right.
a historically and religiously significant site, and then visited his family home,
Okay.
emphasizing his connection to the city and its people.
It's like he's weaving a narrative of continuity and renewal.
Yeah, and then there's that comment he made about the ridiculously low salaries of government officials.
Oh, yeah, under the previous regime.
Yeah, highlighting that vast disparity
Right.
between the elite and the ordinary people.
It shows he's really aware of the social inequalities.
Yeah, and suggests that addressing them will be key
Right.
for his agenda.
And remember his description of the liberation campaign as a blend of security and military operations.
Oh, yeah.
Emphasizing the effort to minimize civilian casualties.
Oh, of course.
It shows that despite the strategic cunning,
Right.
he's not indifferent to the human cost of conflict.
And then there's that really poignant statement he made.
What was that?
Displacement is the harshest punishment a person can endure.
Oh, wow.
It speaks to his empathy and understanding of the trauma
Yeah.
experienced by those forced to flee their homes.
Which ties back to his commitment to bringing refugees back to Syria
Yes.
and seeing them as a part of this rebuilding process.
Absolutely. There's a real sense of hope there.
Yeah.
But also a recognition of the immense challenges ahead.
Absolutely. And one of those challenges is navigating the complex geopolitical landscape.
Oh, for sure.
He's already made that bold move by expelling Iranian forces.
Right.
What about other players in the region?
Right. Like he specifically mentioned being wary of Israel's intentions
Okay.
and the need to avoid a premature conflict.
So he's thinking several steps ahead,
He is.
trying to anticipate potential threats and secure Syria's future.
Absolutely. And he had that interesting observation about Islamists.
What was that?
He said that they're very skilled at opposition,
Okay.
but they struggle with governance.
That's a really good point, and it makes you wonder, what role will various Islamist fashions play in a post-conflict Syria?
Big question.
Yeah, will they be able to adapt to a new political reality, or will they become a source of instability?
Right, and that speaks to the larger uncertainties surrounding al-Shara's leadership.
Yeah, will he be able to maintain this momentum,
It's hard to say.
this delicate balance of strength and compassion?
He's clearly a skilled politician and a strategic thinker.
Yeah.
But governing a nation as fractured as Syria, that's a Herculean task.
Yeah,
You know, there will be internal and external pressures,
of course.
competing interests and unforeseen challenges.
And the weight of expectations?
Oh, yeah.
He's become a symbol of hope for many Syrians.
Huge expectations.
But fulfilling those hopes will require more than charisma and clever tactics.
You're right. It'd require navigating complex political negotiations,
Yeah.
managing a fragile economy, rebuilding trust, and healing deep societal wounds.
And all of that while under intense international scrutiny. So
Absolutely.
we've gone from al-Shara the terrorist to al-Shara the savior.
Yeah.
But which narrative will ultimately prevail?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And I think the answer will depend not only on al-Shara's leadership,
Right.
but also on the actions of other actors,
Okay.
both within Syria and on the global stage.
So it's not just about one man's vision.
Yeah.
It's this complex interplay of forces
It is.
that will really shape Syria's future and maybe the future of the entire region.
Precisely. And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Right.
We're witnessing a pivotal moment in history,
Yeah.
and the stakes couldn't be higher.
Okay, before we get too carried away with this grand sweep of history, let's bring it back to al-Shara himself.
Okay.
What were some more personal insights that emerged from these interviews?
Well, he did share some reflections on his journey.
Okay.
The challenges he faced and the lessons he learned.
It humanizes him a bit.
It does.
It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of events
Right.
and forget there's a person
There's a human there.
behind it all.
And I think that's an important takeaway.
Yeah.
We often view leaders through a lens of power and ideology,
Sure.
but ultimately they're individuals,
Right.
shaped by their experiences, their beliefs, and their aspirations.
So it's not just about understanding al-Shara's policies or strategies.
Right.
It's about understanding him.
The man himself.
What motivates him? What are his fears? What keeps him up at night?
Those are excellent questions.
Yeah.
And while we may never have complete answers,
Right.
I think these interviews offer some clues.
Like, for example.
Well, remember when he talked about the importance of time management?
No, yeah.
He sees it not just as a practical skill,
Okay.
but as a core value,
Right.
a reflection of his commitment to serving the people and achieving his goals.
It's like he feels this profound sense of urgency.
Yeah,
Like there's not a moment to waste.
and that makes sense given the enormity of the task before him.
Of course.
Rebuilding a nation, reconciling a divided people, securing a lasting peace.
It's a lot.
It's a daunting undertaking.
Yeah, it's almost too much for one person to bear.
Right.
And yet he seems to embrace the challenge.
Maybe that's the defining characteristic of a true leader.
Yeah.
That ability to not just withstand pressure,
Right.
but to thrive under it.
To see chaos as an opportunity and not a threat.
Exactly. And to inspire others to do the same.
Okay, so where do we go from here? We've analyzed his leadership and dug into his past and explored his vision for Syria, but what does it all mean for, like, you, the listener?
Yeah, why should you care about Ahmad al-Shara?
Okay.
Well, I think there's several reasons why this matters.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, it challenges our assumptions about leadership and change.
Okay.
Al-Shara's story shows that these seemingly impossible transformations can occur,
Right.
that individuals can change the course of history.
It's like a real-life David and Goliath story.
It is.
Except David is a cunning strategist who managed to outmaneuver not just one giant, but like several.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second reason why this matters.
Okay.
Al-Shara's leadership could have a ripple effect
Okay.
throughout the Middle East, potentially influencing other conflicts and power dynamics.
We've already seen him challenge Iran's influence.
Exactly.
What will his approach be towards other regional players like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, or Israel?
And how will global powers like the U.S. and Russia react to this new Syria?
Yeah.
A country that seems determined to chart its own course.
Those are some key questions.
They are big ones.
And the answers are going to have significant implications for the region's stability,
Sure.
economic development, and even the global fight against terrorism.
Absolutely. So al-Shara's story is not just about Syria.
Right.
It's about the shifting geopolitical landscape
Yeah.
and the forces that are reshaping the world order.
That's a great point. Okay, so let's talk about the challenges he might face.
Sure.
What are the biggest hurdles that al-Shara is likely to face as he goes forward?
Rebuilding a nation after more than a decade of conflict is a monumental task.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is devastated, the economy is in shambles, and the social fabric is deeply torn.
And there's the lingering threat of extremism.
Right. Even if ISIS has been defeated, the ideologies that fueled their rise.
Right, they haven't vanished.
No, they haven't vanished overnight. And then there are internal divisions within Syria,
Okay.
different factions and ethnic groups vying for power and influence.
It's a-
Managing those tensions will be crucial
Yeah.
for long-term stability. And then there are the external pressures.
Right, like regional rivals, global superpowers.
The non-state actors.
all with their own agendas.
Navigating those competing interests will require, a deft hand and a clear strategic vision.
And resources.
And resources rebuilding Syria will take time, money, and expertise.
Can al-Shara attract the necessary investment and support?
Yeah. Will he face resistance and skepticism?
Yeah, from those who view him with suspicion.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the human element.
Right.
Millions of Syrians have been displaced, traumatized, and disillusioned by years of war and hardship.
Yeah, can he truly reconcile a nation that's been so deeply wounded?
These are all valid concerns.
Yeah.
And they highlight the enormity of the challenge.
Right.
But let's not forget his strengths.
Okay.
He's a proven strategist, a skilled negotiator, and a leader who seems genuinely committed to his people's well-being.
And he's shown a remarkable ability to adapt
Yeah.
and overcome adversity.
So maybe, just maybe, he can defy the odds once again.
It's certainly a possibility, and I think that's what makes al-Shara's story so compelling.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
a story of hope and resilience, of ambition and uncertainty.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times,
Yeah,
the human spirit can prevail.
so well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder. What does al-Shara's rise to power mean for the future of the Middle East?
Right. Is this a new era, one marked by cooperation and stability, or are old conflicts going to come up again?
And drag the region back into chaos?
Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure. Ahmad al-Shara is a figure who will continue to shape events, challenge assumptions, and inspire debate for years to come.
So keep your eye on Syria because the story is far from over. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of Ahmad al-Shara.